Shalom, Isaac here, talking about being a Christian leader. We're looking at some essential principles to having lasting influence. The fourth principle that we've been looking at is Christian leaders need to be committed to making disciples. In our previous teaching, we looked a little bit about that, about being a spiritual parent, being a disciple maker, sharing what you know. Now I want to talk about the discipleship loop, the disciple maker's loop. First of all, I want to talk about discipleship is teaching, explaining, demonstrating, empowering, coaching, and training. You say, wow, that's a lot of big words. Well, let's walk through the cycle. Okay, the first thing you're going to do when you're doing discipleship, again, a lot like parenting, is you're going to teach a person what they need to do, the what's of life. The next phase is you're going to tell them why. You can tell them why they need to do it. Explaining. This is the explaining part, explaining what impact it's going to have. Then you go on to show and demonstrate how it's to be done. You already have this principle in your life. You already know how. So now you're demonstrating how it's done. The next stage is empowerment, getting them started. You're going to kind of let them get started in doing it as you stand and watch and kind of help them through their first stages in trying it out themselves. Then the next stage is you're going to keep them going. You're going to be a coach. You're going to be there to say, well, you could have done this a little better. Oh, you did really good in this way. And to coach them along the process, to keep them going. And when they get discouraged, when they want to quit, say, no, keep going in this Christian life or this endeavor that you're undertaking. And then help them to pass it on. This is the training phase and actually the reproduction phase where they'll go on to reproduce. So this process is much seen in parenting when we're raising up children, and it's also seen in the typical stages of training when you're training someone, but in discipleship it's the same thing. And you may not think of every single process and every step along the way. It might just be a natural flow, but there's a progression that's going. Remember, you're going to tell them tell somebody what they need to do, and then why they need to do it, show them how to do it, demonstrate it through your life, then help them get started in doing it, doing the same thing. Then keep them going in it, and finally help them pass it on to others. Let's just look at an example of that. Let's say it's prayer. You're going to teach them what to do. Prayer is talking to God. You're telling them what it is. It's communication with God. Then you tell them why. Why do we want to communicate with God? Well, because He's our Maker, and this is how we develop intimacy, and we can listen to Him, and we can share our heart with Him. And why we do this is because it'll help us to connect with the one who made us. Then you show them how. You pray. Maybe you bow your head, you get in a quiet place, and you just talk to the Lord. They listen, and they hear it, and they see you praying. And then you get them started. You say, well, why don't you pray? Why don't you just say a few words to God? And you listen to them praying, and you give them an opportunity. You get them started in praying. You give them a good place and good time where they're praying. And then you keep them going. You ask them, hey, have you been praying today? Have you been talking to your Heavenly Father? Have you been connecting with Him? And you're kind of keeping them going. You're there to coach them along. And then finally you watch them one day start to pass it on. They're praying in a group of other people, and they're showing somebody else how to pray, and you go, there, the whole loop, the whole disciple maker's loop has happened. Again, this is true, this process that I just talked about is true with so many different activities and so many different of the discipleship disciplines that we can find. So remember, as a Christian leader, you need to be committed to making disciples. Shalom.